I was telling you that it would have been kind of interesting if this movie was just called Apocalypse without the X-Men portion, and all 4 movies on this video would start with A.
Oh, wow.
That's just, that's an odd occurrence.
It is.
So yeah, we're going to start with X-Men Apocalypse, which is Bryan Singer's newest X-Men outing. He's not handing it off anymore. He's going to do his own thing. Controversies be damned. He's just gonna keep on moving through this. And maybe this is a good time to go ahead and throw out there. This has come up a few times with the Wolverine and Days of Future Past and stuff having reviews already, I think. But the X-Men series is not really one that I latched on to. Especially the way most people did. I didn't really start actually actively liking them until First Class.
Okay.
People, I know it's cause for crucifixion if you don't like X2, but I don't like X2.
I saw your list. I know you don't like X2.
So, yeah, it wasn't until we kind of got into this new area with the younger cast that I don't know what the difference is, if it's the characters or what it is, but
it might be somewhat.
I've much preferred these new ones that are set in the past than the original lineup. But here we my reaction to this movie, which you know because of the star amount, I don't know if it's this movie faltering or if it's just more like the other ones. Mm-hmm. Like, I know the critical reception has left a lot to be desired for fans, but I don't know if this is more in line with the other ones, like the first 2, and that's kind of why I was going away from it, or if it's just really not that good.
We've heard both from different people.
Because it starts off, as every single one does, with the narration talking about mutants and why they're different and all that stuff that we've heard before. Only this time we're actually getting Apocalypse's backstory, which is in the year like 3000 something BC. Like I think it was 3600 or something. Okay. There's and then eventually we end up in the 80s. Because we started off in the 60s with First Class, then we went to the 70s with Days of Future Past, and now we're in the 80s, which is weird since none of these people age. I mean, I know there are mutants, but they still age, obviously. Because, well, for one thing, McAvoy and Fassbender obviously become Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, so... Well, Ian McKellen, anyway, we know Patrick Stewart doesn't age, but...
This is true.
But when you compare him to James McAvoy, it's clear he's a little older. Just a little.
Just a tad.
When he's not trapping people in the green room. So that's... I guess you just have to roll with that. That's your thing. Another thing that obviously clearly aged, because when First Class starts, they're children, so... But no, once it got to the 60s, they just kind of stopped suddenly. Oh no, they aged 5 years, because First Class was in 2011. But that's okay, whatever. Now, I was very, very confident in this, actually. Which, me going into an X-Men movie confident obviously doesn't happen very often.
No.
Regardless of how much I love Days of Future Past and I like First Class. Usually there's still a bit of reservation, because it's like, people like these movies a lot more than I do, so we'll just kind of see what happens. Underwhelming is a word that went through my head a lot last night. Mm-hmm. Start with the fact that you have this villain, who is obviously Oscar Isaac, who is great in pretty much everything. From Inside Llewyn Davis to Drive to Star Wars. The Two Faces of January, I think is what that movie was called. I saw it. I struggle to remember its title. He's been doing a lot of great, consistent work lately. And... So he's playing this gigantic villain that is basically immortal and quite literally a god. And his name comes from the fact that he is going to bring the apocalypse. He's going to tear the world down and build a new, better one, or whatever it is he says. However, and he's got the 4 horsemen behind him. I really love that line where it's Rose Byrne's telling them everything's going down, and she's like, and he's got 4 horsemen, and they're like, oh, like in the Bible, and she's like, no, the Bible took that from him. It's like, holy shit, this guy's the real deal.
That was in the TV spot, and that was an awesome line there too.
Like, so this guy predates the Bible. Like, the Bible, like, stole stuff from him. That is how gargantuan this villain is. And now he's here, and he's just gonna wipe everything out. And do a very, very biblical apocalypse thing. Complete with his 4 horsemen. Well, that setup really sets you up for something we don't quite get.
Yeah.
Well, for starters, you think, you see on that awesome poster where he's, like, holding the skull and everything's real dark around him. And it's like, you can just kind of see it's almost like the world kind of coming to an implode and just everything just going to waste as he's, you know, this triumphant villain just wiping everything out. A lot of the time, he just kind of walks around in a hood like he's homeless. I mean, it's like every time we see him, he's not like on some pedestal, and he's not, you know, like this giant godly creature. He's just kind of hanging out. He's, like, most of the time we see him, he's just kind of standing there, almost in the background. And his 4 horsemen here, we have Olivia Munn, who's got, like, what's basically a lightsaber. There's Angel, and it's just very... let's just say I did not look at those 4 and think, oh my god, the apocalypse has come. We are all doomed.
I know the fans were pissed about Olivia Munn.
I already hear the trumpets. Oh, this is terrifying. Nope, I wasn't feeling that. I mean, he does have some cool stuff. Like, there's during the opening scene, there's a scene where the person's, like, thrown into the air and then crumpled up like a ball and just burned to waste. And there's the scene where Apocalypse, like, uses sand to, like, decapitate people. He, like, just decapitates 3 dudes in a row. They're like, well, that's okay. That's kind of... but that's pretty much, like, the coolest thing he does, and it's one of the first things he does.
Yeah.
Every other time, it's like, he kind of reminded me of, Jared Nomak, the villain in Blade 2. Except he was awesome. But nevertheless, he just walked around with a hood and, like, brooded. That was cool for that character in Blade 2, but I wouldn't expect it from the guy that's bringing on the apocalypse.
No.
And is a god. But that's okay. He has a run-in with that creepy bald dude. Was he the egg guy in Snowpiercer? I think he was.
I think you're right, actually.
You haven't seen Snowpiercer, or are you just guessing that I'm right?
Well, I mean, I've seen pictures and I've seen images.
Because he kind of looked like Leto's Joker, too. Like, I was looking at him, I was like, I wonder if people will mistake him for Jared Leto.
What was the character's name?
In what? Snowpiercer or X-Men?
X-Men.
I don't remember. He was there for, like, that one scene just behind that counter.
There's so many people in this
I don't know what he's called in Snowpiercer either. I just call him the egg guy. But
alright, then. That works.
But regardless, so yes, a really, really intriguing concept that could have been awesome and certainly had the imagery down.
Mm-hmm.
But wow, that just did not go as I thought it would, in not a very good way. It's a shame for Oscar Isaac too, because he really has he could have really made this something, but he's like buried in that makeup. Like, he's like suffocating in there.
You can tell it's him though if you know.
Yes, mainly in his eyes.
Yeah.
But then you have, apparently there's a controversy surrounding this movie, and that's the fact that a lot of people think there's too much Lawrence. Apparently it's not, actually I don't know. And obviously I'm not, invested enough in the characters to even really care who's the center of attention, but I don't know if people are pissed that Lawrence is the main focus or if Mystique is. Because I guess I guess people hate that Lawrence is the center of attention and they try to cover it up by saying Mystique is not supposed to be that much center of a character or something. I don't know. I'm probably really pissing people off now, I'm sorry. But the thing, and I think the issue was that Mystique's whole thing basically is that she embraces what she looks like. She embraces the blue. And that's why she kind of takes that form and just says, "This is who I am. Fuck it." Which is basically the whole point of X-Men in general, is the acceptance and all that stuff. But because Jennifer Lawrence is Jennifer Lawrence now, and she's much bigger than she was in 2011 when First Class came out, and she had signed her contracts for multiple movies. They decided, well, if we're gonna make money, we need to have Jennifer Lawrence look like Jennifer Lawrence. So fuck the whole Mystique wants to be blue all the time thing. She'll just be when it's just whenever. Like, there's real no even purpose when she finally says, okay, I'm gonna be blue now. It's just like a decision she decides to make sometimes.
Pretty much.
And I guess it's a whole another thing is very, like, at the very end when she's, like, you know, getting them amped up and saying, you know, like, things aren't what they used to be or whatever the fuck. She's coming off very Katniss again. And the way she leads the charge and all that. Yeah, I suppose. I don't know, I just don't care either way. I don't. That's kind of the problem. Is I just don't care. And then there's you know, some decent stuff in here, like the whole Fassbender, you know, tried to kill everybody at the end of Days of Future Past and like picked up stadiums and shit. So he's got to go into hiding, obviously, where he has the family and all that, and it basically becomes all right. Don't get too mad, especially if you liked the movie. But there's just really, I just kind of got to throw this out there because it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. But I know everybody wants to forget it happened. I know everybody is just trying to sweep it under the rug and say, no, especially with other things we've been getting. It's like, yep, that definitely does not exist. However, I will just say that there were a surprising amount of scenes in this movie that made me think back to X-Men Origins. I'm sorry, but the movie does in fact exist. And if you keep making the X-Men movies like this, you're not going to forget it. That and Deadpool, as much as he hates his old life, won't shut the fuck up about it. But anyway, I'm sorry, please don't be angry. What I'm getting at, though, is Eric has a family now, while he's in hiding. Since 10 years has passed. Weirdly. Obviously, we know inevitably something will have to go wrong because we know Magneto as he is when Ian McKellen plays him. That scene kind of caught me off guard. Obviously we know what the outcome of that's going to be, but the way they went about it was kind of surprising. It was like, wow, that's pretty effective, actually. Nice. So that worked, what little kind of plot that was there. That side thing. McAvoy, I think we needed a little more McAvoy, especially since, he's not, the performance angle of this movie is kind of, we weren't really getting a lot of what we could have there, especially since, I still think this, like, you would think in 2 years' time it'd be something that would kind of dissipate because of the kind of movie it is and just, you know, all things considered. But no, I still believe that James McAvoy is awards worthy in Days of Future Past. That is such an incredibly good performance. We don't get any performances like that in this one, not even from him. And it also, I think another thing that doesn't help is the writing is doing this movie no favors. Not just story and structure and all that, but dialogue too. Because it's, like I said, McAvoy was far and away the best part of Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past has a lot of great things in it. There's just that one scene in particular that stands out where it's like, they're saying like, ooh, the apocalypse is coming, and yeah, the apocalypse. And the scene ends with us lingering on McAvoy, and he just says, the end of the world. It's like, thank you, Professor. Thank you for, you know, telling us exactly what's going on, because the word apocalypse is not thrown around enough. I wasn't quite sure if the end of the world was coming or not, but thank you for establishing it. I'm glad to. He got a dramatic linger, too, just so he could deliver it. Yeah, that's just one example of the the script process wasn't a whole lot, especially since for being a movie that is 2.5 hours, not a whole lot happens. A lot of this is like build up and introductory stuff. You wouldn't think this is if we're counting Deadpool, ninth X-Men movie. A ninth X-Men movie does not need this much setup.
This is true.
But then we have to bring in the other characters from the movies that everybody liked that I didn't, like Nightcrawler, who's Cody Smith-McPhee now.
Nightcrawler's awesome, but I just didn't like him in the movie.
Sporting Cody Smith-McPhee or Alan Cumming?
Alan Cumming, of course, was good.
Okay. For me, I thought Cody Smith-McPhee was one of kind of the highlights here, because he's like one of the few that actually had a personality in his Michael Jackson jacket.
I like his character. I've always liked Nightcrawler, though.
Here's one problem, though, and I think this is an issue, kind of a big issue, and probably my issues with the other ones as well, which I'm sure is another thing that's sacrilege. Sorry, but Jean Grey is not interesting to me. I could not give one fuck about that character, no matter who plays her or what story she's in. And I didn't think that going in. I was just like, well, I found her uninteresting in the other movies, and then I heard she was going to be played by... I mean, fans were going to love it regardless because it's some fucking Game of Thrones actress, but regardless, with Dinklage being in Days of Future Past, they're just going to round up that whole cast eventually. Emilia Clarke will be in the next one.
Give it
I
time.
assure you. And yes, this really didn't change anything. So it was watching I didn't really, care about Jean in the other movies, but it wasn't until watching the character in this movie I was like, oh, I think that's what the problem is. I just don't give a fuck about this character. I guess that's what it was the whole time. Okay. And they try to be a bit self-deprecating, I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
because
that one line you're talking about, probably.
Because obviously, it's set in the 80s now, and we have to incorporate as many things as we can to tell you that it's the 80s, so there's a scene where they go see Return of the Jedi, and they're coming out, and they're talking about how Empire's better, and no, A New Hope's better, and then somebody says, well, the third one's always the worst, and there's like a self-aware thing, but then it's like, okay, this is technically the 9th movie, but since it's the 3rd movie since First Class, and First Class kind of started its own thing, is this technically the 3rd movie that they are saying is the...
I was just happy one of my favorite characters from the animated series actually got some screen time, even though she didn't get to do anything.
Storm?
Jubilee.
Yeah.
I've always been a big Jubilee fan.
I don't know why I guess Storm.
I don't like Storm's hair in this
Speaking
one.
of Storm, like I said, I know fans, obviously, given the name of the term, fans don't mind this, and fans will wonder why I'm giving it shit for doing this. But non-fans or people on the outside will know what I mean. Throughout the movie, also, it was very, very clear, even more so than the others. There is a lot of fan service in this movie.
Yeah.
Apocalypse is basically the origin of all the shit we know in the first movies. Up to and including Storm's fucking white hair. It's like, wow, you are really, really pushing. Even if that's a comics thing, still, it felt very, very forced.
They had to, though.
But anyway, I could say that the movie, it's no fault of the movie, but it is. We were forced to see it in 3D so that we could see Alice after it.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
And this is... I guess I've heard some complaints about the CG and the fact that pretty much every damn thing in this movie almost could have been animated.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue is... Obviously, I'm already not a fan of 3D in pretty much anything. But in movies like this especially, that are so effects heavy, even if your effects look fake, in 3D they will look so much faker.
Yeah, that's good. That is a
it's like, wow, I am literally looking at nothing but computer-generated images of animation. There are no fucking stakes here whatsoever. The apocalypse is among us. There are no fucking stakes here. Not to mention that people have been saying this for a while now, but it's really, really starting to make itself apparent. Superhero movies bringing about the apocalypse. Can you really... Civil War just did something new, but apart from Civil War aside, do we really always have to be bringing on the apocalypse? Can we not, bring in more Daniel Brühls that are just pissed off regular people?
There seem to be more fun characters.
Yeah.
Because they're different.
Yeah. And, going back to the fan service, by the way. The Stan Lee cameo. I've been saying that it was when we were talking about when we had like a whole week devoted to Marvel a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly, it was weird.
I was talking about how the Stan Lee cameos were kind of fun when they just came and went, or if you use them the right way, like in Captain America or something. But here, but sometimes they've been getting out of hand. Like you don't want to draw that much attention to them. In any particular case, it probably would have just been a flash of him and then he's there and gone. But in this one, not only do we get a shot of him, but there is an immediate follow-up shot that's a close-up of his face. Just in case you didn't see it. I mean, I know the point was to, like, the reflection in his glasses, but still. It's like, yeah, we fucking saw him.
We almost need to have a little, like, thought bubble that says, hey guys, it's Stan Lee.
I'm surprised. Did he say something? He might not have said something, but I'm surprised he didn't say something, if he didn't say something.
He was holding on to his lady friend. That's pretty much all he was doing.
They brought Quicksilver back.
Yes.
Because everybody complained in Days of Future Past. It was like, dude, you really could have used him. Why'd you do the one kitchen scene and then abandon him? I was like, well, I'm leaving now. Bye.
His character's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
I would get another time in a bottle scene, too.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You could tell that it was supposed to be you like that scene where we're going to give you something bigger and better. Mm-hmm. The stakes are certainly bigger.
Yeah.
But the scene is not really better. It's pretty clear that it's, I totally get, doing the same thing, only bigger.
Right.
And it can pay off and be like, wow, they really added on to what was already great and made it greater. No, they just kind of went a little big, but it was like, yeah, that's, you did that thing, and I saw that thing, and that was nice, and it's kind of cool to see it again. But you didn't really go bigger or better. If you went bigger, you didn't go necessarily better.
I like the payoff to it, because everybody just kind of goes at once.
Especially since Time in a Bottle is such a good, it makes sense.
Scene's perfect. It feels like something out of Watchmen.
I mean, the song makes sense.
Yeah.
This one, it was obvious they just wanted to set the tone of the era.
Yep.
It's like the whole... You basically set it in the 80s just so you can make references to the fact that it's set in the 80s.
Yes, this is correct.
But, it's fine. It's fine. He is still one of the more... They could have run him into the ground. Thankfully, they don't do that yet. If the movies keep it up the quality of this...
Tell them you like him and he won't be ran into the ground.
But we know we're going to get more of him because of his storyline.
Right.
Then, of course, they need to say, well, we're going to make more movies, so we won't give you everything at once. We're going to stretch this out needlessly. But, okay. So, there's a lot of stuff here that really, really could have worked. And you could have made something great. But the trouble is that this is just very, very... The X-Men movies really don't feel that very distinguished from each other to me. I think that's another issue. There's so many things in 1, 2, and 3 where if you say a scene, I'm not quite sure which movie is which sometimes. So there is, so the X-Men franchise did win me over with First Class and Days of Future Past, and to an extent Deadpool, but this is kind of back in that. I don't know what the fans think of it. I'm very curious about that. But
Fassbender drops an F-bomb out of nowhere here.
Not necessarily out of nowhere, because there was one in First Class.
Well, I know, but the context of the way it was done, it kind of felt like that just happened.
Yeah, because they do it in First Class, and then in Days of Future Past, McAvoy throws the line back. A paraphrased version of the line back to him. I always wanted somebody to...
That works, though.
I wanted there to be 2 in Days of Future Past.
Mm.
Because it's in First Class, it's, hey, where, and then he says, go fuck yourself. And then I really wanted the scene in Days of Future Past to be McAvoy saying, I'm going to tell you exactly what you told me. Fuck off. No, I believe I said go fuck yourself. That would have been really good.
That would have been great.
And that's still within the confines of PG-13. You can say it 3 times.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
Supporting players were good.
Who's left I didn't talk about?
I mean, you're talking about
Nicholas Hoult and yeah.
Ty Sheridan.
Ty Sheridan was, Cyclops. I'd totally forgotten about that when he showed up. I was like, Ty Sheridan's in this? Oh, yeah, he's, of course. Another character. Good God. Fucking whiny-ass Scott. Why did...
No one likes Cyclops, though. That's the weird thing, is like throughout all the movies and the comics, though.
Like when
he has a fan base, but most people don't like him.
It's kind of like my relation with Gene and Famke Janssen in the originals, because I was thinking, like, do I not like the character, or is it the performance? Like, do I just not like Marsden in the role, or is Scott just really fucking whiny?
Did you watch the animated series?
And it's kind of like, no. And then it's kind of like in Days of Future Past when everything is brought back, because there are no fucking stakes in the X-Men movies, because nobody really dies. Ever. Right. Everybody dies. Fucking nobody dies. And Days of Future Past just made that even... like, if that's one criticism I have of Days of Future Past, it's that fucking ending where it's like, Scott's the one guy you kept dead, and he's the one guy you should have fucking kept dead. But no.
The next film is going to be set in the 90s.
Of course it is, and they'll still look exactly the same, only like 2 years older. Does it have a name?
But you might get to care more about Jean Grey because she's going back to Dark Phoenix. Sounds like they're going to do the Dark Phoenix saga.
Just regardless.
It's a lot more entertaining, honestly, for her as a heel than a babyface.
I don't know.
Well, she's not a very interesting character.
Well, they did that, didn't they?
They started on that, yeah.
In The Last Stand.
Right. But they didn't fully go into it. This one they actually are going to, apparently.
Yeah. I think I'm getting them all.
Yeah, let's do this.
I don't know. Whatever.
Let's talk about some more time.
X-Men fans don't like me.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay. Our second movie, because God hates us.
Yes.
Is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Which is called Alice Through the Looking Glass. Nevertheless, our posters still are fucking Johnny Depp as the Mad Hatter in full focus.
Of course it is.
Despite the fact that he did that thing, he did the classic thing of, yeah, put me on the poster, I'll be the star of this sequel, but I basically almost want to be written out of it. So just make it to where I don't have to be in pretty much the movie at all. No, okay, Johnny, we'll do whatever you say. Here's $100 billion. So, there's something I would like to start with, though, before we go into the movie. And that is, the trailers go by, and then the feature presentation thing comes up, and it's like, oh boy, here we go. But nope, they're going to prolong us just a little longer. Do you remember way back in the days of VHS? This is the Alice Through the Looking Glass review. I doubt anybody watching this is aware. But back in the day, there were VHSs where you would watch the movie, and then at the very end, after the credits, there'd be like a music video or something.
Yeah, of course.
But they don't want you to wait for that this time. Before it started, now it's like, what the fuck? Why does this have a short? Not only does it have a short, it's a live action one. What in God's name is this? And then I remembered that Pink did a song for this movie. And it is not enough, okay? It is not enough that it's the end credit song. We already know it's going to be the end. Like, when Pink is going on the talk show circuit and she's like, I did a song for Alice Through the Looking Glass and I'm going to perform it now. You immediately know that song only exists to be the end credit song. and to get a nomination at the Golden Globes for Best Song. Not the Oscars, just the Golden Globes. And the issue with this is, and they play the music video before the movie. Okay. I don't know. Okay. And then here's the thing. Is I know how the business works. I'm not typically all about that whole complaining about Hollywood as a corporate industry. All they care about is money, and they put all that stuff in it. And they're just, money, it doesn't care about quality. Just, obviously, that'll be the case a lot. But something about this music video, while I was watching it, just really, really got to me, and made me say, okay, I honestly feel like I am directly in the middle of Hollywood advertising at its worst.
Yeah.
Because I was just watching this and I was like, this won't enhance anything, will it? This is purely here just so people will go home and want to revisit it and get it YouTube likes and purchases on iTunes and all that other shit. That is the only reason it is at the front of the movie. The fact that it exists at all should be enough marketing. But no, they actually fucking play it before the movie. And I don't know, that just really, really got to me in a way I didn't like. It felt very, very, wow, this movie literally is nothing but a goddamn advertisement. And just a reason for Disney to make even more money. That leaves a bad taste in your mouth before the opening logo. Something is horribly wrong when we're seeing the Disney logo, and already for the past 3 minutes I've been thinking, this is just a whole bunch of bullshit.
Oh yeah.
And now we've got a 2-hour movie to sit through. Just to hear that song again at the end of it. Which you have to stick around and listen to if you want to see the Alan Rickman dedication. So, okay. So that was before the movie started. And then the movie actually begins. And there's Alice. And now she's a sea captain. Yeah! Because, that's what you think. In the first one, you totally look at Alice and Alice in Wonderland and you think, yep, battle warrior with armor and swords and shit. Second movie comes along. Yep, when I see Alice, I definitely think fucking sea captain.
Yeah, no lie.
And it's her dad's boat. And she's all, I'm gonna prove myself. Yeah. But of course, it's the exact same thing as the first movie. We have our prologue, where it's, she must be, prim and proper Alice, because she's a lady, and it's the, 1800s. So we actually have that scene where it's an idiotic Jane Austen by way of James Ivory fucking thing, where she's... it's the dude she's supposed to marry in the first movie. Now he's married to somebody else, and he's, being uptight, villainy, whatever. And she shows up, and basically the conflict in movies, in stories like this, is that she shows up in a really loud dress. Just a really colorful, cobbled together, Molly Ringwald dress. And she's at this fancy ball. And it's, oh, we uptight British people are so offended, and they're actually, I'm not even making this one up, you actually hear, it's almost like it's a parody, but I don't think it's supposed to be. When she walks in, you actually hear British people, British extras in the background, saying, outrageous and absurd. Wow, you're just really going for it, aren't you? And that's the kind of problems that happen in period piece land. There are whole Oscar-winning movies devoted to movies that have actual plots like that. Because costume dramas are the greatest fucking thing ever, aren't they?
Oh, God.
And of course the problem is, oh, you can't be a sea captain, that's not what ladies do. That's what her mom actually says. These are the conflicts. just killing time until she gets to Wonderland. Excuse me, Underland. So, she goes back to Underland, and we immediately hear... We get all sad because the caterpillar is a butterfly now, and Alan Rickman reads us a few lines. It's like, oh, that's the very last of him. That's the very last we got of him. Because we haven't got Eye in the Sky here. But a lot of people are saying, just call Eye in the Sky his last movie, then you'll be fine. But anyway, the plots don't get better. Nope. If it's not ladies can't be sea captains, and oh my god, that dress is outrageous. No. It gets better. Our plot this time around is that Mad Hatter is back, front and center in the story again for some reason, and he's playing fetch with himself. Because there's no other more contrived way to do this. So he's just playing fetch with himself, and he finds a crumpled little blue hat that he made. It's the first hat he ever made. It's so gut-wrenchingly sad. It is so... I mean, your heartstrings are just going to be put through the ringer here. It's shock fucking surprise. Johnny Depp plays another character with daddy issues.
May not be the only time this weekend.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Well, it turns out that he thinks his family's dead because of the Jabberwocky. You know, that giant animated dragon fucking thing that they cut the head off of. Apparently that killed his family, supposedly. But for some reason he starts to think they're alive again. Because the plot tells him to. So he's like, hey, Alice, you're here conveniently. I don't even remember why you're here, but you're here. Why don't you go look for my family while I lay in bed and collect my paycheck? And then she's like, well, I guess. And then Anne Hathaway's just kind of hanging out there. Wasn't Anne Hathaway like the big queen?
Yeah.
At the end of the last movie?
Pretty sure.
Now she just fucking hangs out at the Mad Hatter's table. That's all she does too. And she's always there. Like, even when she's not even needed. She'll just be, like, sitting in the background at the table, just doing nothing. And it's like, aren't you fucking royalty? What are you doing? Don't you have a fucking castle to live in? I don't know. My memory of the last one's so vague. I haven't seen it in the 6 years it came out.
Oh my god.
But anyway, I saw it twice, too. But it was that time. So, it's...
Yep.
But... Yeah, and then eventually he turns into, do you remember that scene in Fellowship of the Ring, when, I think it's obviously Frodo has the ring, and Bilbo really wants it, and then there's like a split second where Bilbo gets like really fucking scary and lunges at Frodo for it?
Right.
That's basically what the Mad Hatter turns into. Only he's real fucking sad about it. And he just sits in bed and deteriorates. And it's like, this is quite literally how Johnny Depp earns his money. Right after Black Mass, too. It's such a shame. It's like, I feel so bad insulting him when he gave, like, one of the very best performances of last year. And it's just right back into this.
This makes money, unfortunately that did not.
Yeah. Well, he's getting divorced now, so he might need more money.
He's going to need a lot more money.
Yeah. So anyway, she goes on this journey, and lo and behold, she has to go deal with Time. Time's an actual character who is Sacha Baron Cohen. And to get there, she has to go through a clock. If you feel like this clock looks familiar, it's because it's the wardrobe from Narnia. And then I never realized just how much Narnia is in these movies. Until it just really, really hits here. And then it's basically the same damn movie with time travel in it. And not one of those, not like Days of Future Past. It's not like, it's kind of cool when we add time travel to it. No, she gets into that, she gets into the time machine. Which is literally the time machine from like the 1960 movie. With oh my god, Rod Taylor. I almost forgot his name. And a lot of this movie, talking about animated, this movie is Pan levels of every fucking thing is poorly animated. Like, every set, every fucking everything. There are some good sets, like the time stuff.
Yeah.
And Sacha Baron Cohen basically kind of inhabiting that Hugo world again. But for them, it felt like so much of this movie was just her going back and forth in the damn time machine. And not in a funny way like in the SpongeBob movie. It's just really fucking tiresome bullshit.
Yeah.
Just over and over and over again. And she's hardly accomplishing fucking anything. She just keeps going... This movie's a goddamn chore. If that point hasn't been made yet. And it's so... There's another problem with... Okay, talking about the animation in this movie. We'll talk about the first one, too. I was actually very surprised when... I know it's a Tim Burton tradition to win the Oscar for art direction. Or production design, as it's called now. Again. But I was a bit flabbergasted when when the movie in 2010 won the Oscar for production design. Costume design I can kind of understand. Production design, I don't know, because I often hear a lot of the praise comes from the look of the movie and stuff like that. Maybe I'm alone in this. These movies are fuck ugly. These movies are fucking unappealing to look at. And they're just dark and, like, kind of... there's just... the aesthetic does not work for me. And the characters, the lovable characters... Okay, look, Matt Lucas playing Tweedledee and Tweedledum as, like, her, hey, remember us? We're friends. Tweedledee and Tweedledum in these movies are fucking terrifying looking.
Yeah, I agree.
The characters we're supposed to love in this movie are fucking scary looking, unintentionally.
Like they should be from American Horror Story.
Oh god, and they're just... These movies are just extremely ugly to me. In appearance, the whole thing. Helena Bonham Carter in the first movie, being all tiny with her giant head, that was just fucking weird. She changes her appearance a bunch in this movie. I don't know... it's weird. Every fucking buddy gets a backstory because we're running out of options to do shit. And
I hope this is the end.
I have no idea how... They try to give us an explanation for why her head's like that, and it doesn't fucking make sense.
No, it doesn't.
And how her body... We never learn how her body gets small. And it's like sometimes she's actually normal size in this movie, and then sometimes she's not. And it fluctuates. It's not like they just chose one and ran with it. It's like, I have no idea what the fuck they're trying to do. And what I don't know. I just don't know. It's all confusing and terrifying and ugly and gross. Though, while we're on the subject of her, I will say, Helena Bonham Carter's the only thing keeping this movie from 1 star. There's just something... I didn't really care about her in the first movie. I don't know. There's something about the way she was in this one, though, where she's so... I know, she's so wonderfully, like, evil in a fun way. Like, she knows that she might as well just, dive tits first into it. It's just... Because it doesn't matter. So she'll just go as crazy as fucking possible. Yeah, it's nice. She's so evil, it's actually kind of adorable. The scene with the ant farm, with Earthquake.
Yeah.
It's like, she's so evil. I kind of like it. It's nice. Much more so than in the other one. And the other one felt like it was trying way too hard. But here it was just like, she's going for it so much, I kind of admire it and like it. Everything else in this movie, though, no.
You don't like Cohen in this?
No. Not really.
I mean, he's playing Christoph Waltz.
You kept saying that. I was getting Werner Herzog.
You can hear... Okay, different people hear that voice different ways, and I think that one would agree with you, one would agree with me.
It was basically like, he was doing an impression of Werner Herzog's voice while kind of doing the character from Hugo, is what I was getting. And I just... And the character, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He doesn't fucking know, we don't fucking know. Nobody cares.
He's not a good guy, he's not a bad guy, he's the time guy.
Yeah, and he just kind of... Why is everybody deteriorating?
That's weird. That's super weird, too.
And then it's...
Because then it becomes really ugly looking.
And then he's basically, After a while there, Time is basically just like a stand-in for Crispin Glover's character in the first movie. Crispin Glover's not in the movie, but he does have a run-in with that character. I was like, whatever happened to that guy? And then it's like that. It's like, holy shit. Okay, that's what happened to him. No, we know how Crispin Glover is about his sequels. He's, unless you give him a bunch of money, he doesn't want to do it.
Right.
No, he was probably always written out.
I'd say so.
It was a while there. I kept thinking Burton had 2 movies this year. I forgot that James Wan had this one.
Yeah.
Which, the Coen Connection, because he worked on the LG show. And you probably mainly know him for doing the Muppets movie, the past 2 Muppets movies.
He's doing 23 Jump Street, too.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And
the MIB one.
Not being Lord Miller's a bad sign, but, and yes, going on that also, and there's just, as I was saying, the backstories, number 1, this movie basically tells us that everything we see in the movies, the whole reason we've been put through 2 of these movies, the whole thing that sets everything off into motion, is fucking cookie crumbs.
Yep. Exactly. Tarts under a bed.
For fuck's sake. And secondly, in case we're very, very desperate for stories here. There is no reason this movie needs to be made, so we need to just think up shit as fast as we can to put in it to make a movie. Because we have to sell Pink's video. That's why this movie has to be made. Now we gotta write the script later. They probably made Pink's video before the script was even written. That's how much I feel like it was a priority. So let's just do the sister thing. We've got the sister rivalry in Oz the Great and Powerful, because we're sticking with this genre.
Which makes this animation work.
We've got the sister thing in Frozen.
Yep.
More on the subject of Frozen. We got the sister angle in The Huntsman, that we just saw.
Right.
Let's just keep doing that shit. Let's just keep doing the sister rivalry, because that's popular right now.
It seems to work.
Let's just do
most
that.
of the time.
Rival sisters and royalty.
Keep it.
Whatever.
Might as well.
And it's like all that stuff's ripped off, but then there's also, there's a scene with a doctor in this movie that is like an exact scene from Return to Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can tell they're kind of trying to do like an Oz thing, just kind of in general, but God, this movie's fucking annoying. Why is it here?
I don't know why it's here.
The whole movie feels so pointless too. I mean, not just that they made it, but the story in general. The whole fucking thing feels pointless. And just to kind of finish this off, as you can probably guess, it's just a fucking bore too. There's just no goddamn redeeming qualities here, except that I thought Helena Bonham Carter was fun. Apart from that, no. Even Hathaway, like, all Hathaway has to do is the stoic, look how beautiful I am thing, which Anne Hathaway can do just by existing.
Right.
But somehow in this movie, they make her so fucking boring. And useless.
Boring.
Like I said, why are you not in your goddamn castle, your royalty? Why are you just sitting at the Mad Hatter's table, talking to a fucking rabbit and a mouse? You clearly have better things you need to be doing. I guess not.
I mean, it's a shame this is Alan Rickman's last movie, too.
So unless you're in denial and you just want to say Eye in the Sky is.
We'll go with that, but sounds good to me.
Forgot we saw Angry Birds like 3 days ago and I lost my notes for a second. Okay. Our third movie is Angry Birds. The title on the screen at the beginning is just Angry Birds. But everything else I've seen says the Angry Birds movie. When the movie ends, it says the Angry Birds movie. So I don't know which one's the official title. But it's Angry Birds regardless.
Right.
Speaking of movies that are made just to make money.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a horrible trend lately. More so than usual, even. Jesus. Okay, so, this game was popular in, 2009?
Something like that.
I never laid eyes on this game once. I only ever heard its name. And it was, every fucking buddy was talking about it. I had no idea what it was. After having seen the movie, I still don't know what it is.
Nope.
I can guess, but I don't know for sure.
The catapult, the trampoline. I'm guessing that has something to do with it.
Okay, so what this is I don't know if they had names in the game or anything. I don't know. It sounded very simple to me from what I understand. So I'm not quite sure how this, but okay. This red bird, whose name I think is just Red, because the ideas are just flowing.
Right, that is correct.
Is Jason Sudeikis. Because when I think angry people, Jason Sudeikis, I guess.
No.
Once again, just continuing to take parts that make me go, what are you doing? This is the third time this year for him. Okay, so, and he's on his way, he's late for a birthday party. He's got a cake. He's running to the house, and he gets there, and the dad pisses him off. So he pulls a Squidward with the Krusty Krab pizza and just throws it in his face in anger. And that's when we learn that Red has an anger problem. And there is, I suppose it's, if your concept is that the fact that the birds are angry, and your main character is, it just takes a little bit to just kind of tip him off and make him go insane. It's kind of like the transformation Jim Carrey does in Me, Myself, and Irene whenever he turns into Hank. It's basically what Red does when he's angry. So yes, Red might very well have, let me see if I remember this, advanced delusionary schizophrenia with involuntary narcissistic rage. He might very well have that. I haven't seen Me, Myself, and Irene in years. I don't know how I remember that phrase.
Some things just stick in your mind.
So, it is kind of a funny, and I don't know, maybe not clever, because I guess it's obvious, but it's a funny setup that, the first conflict is the fact that Red is sentenced to anger management. Anger management that's run by Maya Rudolph, where he meets Danny McBride, who is a giant black bird that explodes, and Josh Gad, who is a small yellow bird that talks a lot, because it's Josh Gad. Way to confuse the kids. Just slap Olaf's voice onto another animated character. That's not going to confuse them at all. Hello again, Frozen. Yeah. So, God, everything just keeps circling all the time. I feel like the last 3 review videos, I feel like we're just going in circles. Oh, for Christ's sake. I guess that's what the summer brings. So, okay, whatever. It's a lot of money, I guess, coming in and spent. But anyway, so there's okay, we'll go ahead. I was going to hold off, but we'll go ahead and talk about this. There is a very interesting casting choice in this movie. It's when I saw Civil War again on Sunday, and as I was walking out of that theater, not this one, but another one, I passed a poster outside for Angry Birds that had the names on it, and I saw Sean Penn. That was before Sunday, I did not know Sean Penn was in this, because we hadn't seen it yet, obviously. So I was like, well, that's interesting. What could that possibly be? I would never have guessed what Sean Penn does in this movie. For starters, I thought they were going to do something really clever and to an extent risky. Because we all know Sean Penn's personality.
Right.
We all know what Sean Penn is known for being like. So I was like, it would be funny as hell. It would be so goddamn funny if Sean Penn was the head of the anger management corps.
Yeah, that would have been great.
But they do one just as good, I think. Because that would have been like an irony thing. Mm-hmm. But here it's just kind of a straightforward thing. Sean Penn is one of the birds in anger management. You might ask what's so special about this, apart from the fact that they had the balls to approach Sean Penn and say, wouldn't it be really hilarious if you played someone that was in anger management? But that's not the payoff. I swear to God. Like, if you haven't seen the movie, I don't know, you're probably wondering how this can even happen. But let me explain. Sean Penn, 2-time Oscar winner Sean Penn, is the voice of one of the birds in Angry Birds. An animated movie he does voice work for. he has no lines. Everything that Sean Penn says in this movie is just a grunt. That's it. If you were to see Sean Penn in the recording booth, all it is him going, he has no lines. But the weird thing about that is you think, well, that's pointless. Like casting Justin Long as Alvin and just making it the high-pitched voice. There is no fucking point for it to be Justin Long.
Right.
Just as you think, if it's just grunting, why cast Sean Penn? I don't know how. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes, like, you can hear this kind of in laughs, too, so maybe that's not all that weird, but there was just something about these grunts where I heard it, and it's like you can hear his voice in it. Because there was one point where Terrence grunts, and I just turned to you and I said, holy shit, I think that's Sean Penn. It's like, somehow I can hear his voice in the grunts. And yeah, that's all. Like, I thought there was going to be one big payoff where, like a Silent Bob thing, where Terrence just grunts through the whole movie, and then at the very end he has like a monologue. Or just like one line. No. No lines at all. Nothing but Sean Penn grunting. You know, that's kind of amazing.
I mean, he has a sense of humor. I mean, he is self-deprecating sometimes, like the Jackass movies.
Well, it's...
I mean, that's the only time you really see it. But I mean, still.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, then you look at like Trey Parker or Matt Stone.
Yeah,
it's
like,
no. Maybe not.
No.
But regardless of that, so I thought that was interesting. Okay, and obviously this is a children's animated movie, directed at very, like I was telling you, like people were saying, who's this targeted at? Because the game is so old now, nobody cares anymore. But I think it's clear that they realized they could make an animated movie about talking birds that are angry.
Mm-hmm.
And bring in children who quite literally were not alive in 2009. Well, 2009 was 7 years ago.
Rio with an Attitude.
And this is... Tell me you read that somewhere.
No.
Jesus Christ.
I did not.
I don't know if it's better or worse that you just said that. So, it's very... So, like, 5-year-olds.
Right.
5-year-olds literally were not alive in 2009.
Correct.
But they're basically who you would take this to. And they would just see it as any other... It doesn't matter that it's based on a game. It's just another animated movie.
That's all most of them are nowadays to kids.
So it doesn't necessarily bother me that it's like an outdated thing. It's like, we just have fucking Ratchet and Clank. Nobody knows what that is. It doesn't matter if the game is from, what was it, 2002?
Something like that, yeah.
It didn't matter at all. It was just...
It was another animated movie to
and you can tell, because of how much money this movie's making. So there's that.
Ridiculous.
But anyway, the point I'm really getting at, though, when I bring that up is, it's an animated movie, mainly directed at, like, 5-year-olds. But their parents are going to come to regardless. So, what's going to happen? We've seen so many animated movies now. What are we looking at here? Wall to wall for a straight 90 minutes of bird puns. From beginning to end. Not necessarily just bird puns either. The very first one in the movie is not a bird pun. Mm-hmm. It's he's running around, he's trying to get to the birthday party, he goes through the water, he comes back up, and there's a fish biting his ass. What's he do? He takes the fish, throws it away, it says bottom feeder.
Too many puns.
That's one of those things though where it's like you just want to say puns are that's like the lowest form, and you're just like, oh, that's I don't know. When bottom feeder happened, I was just like I couldn't help myself.
This movie did give me some laugh out loud moments.
But then they get way out of control.
Yes, they do.
There is, because Maya Rudolph is the head of the anger management courses, she's a free rage chicken. There is, Pluck My Life. There is, there's the little birdies, and they're like, oh man, they should have practiced bird control. You know, stuff like that all the time from beginning to end. So, yeah, you just have to. But like I said, any more that comes with the territory. It's like you pretty much have to know that's what you're in for when you come into a movie like this now. It's just another factor of life. The animated movies have a shitload of puns in them now. But then there's other side characters too. Like I liked the mime. The mime was voiced by somebody I know.
Tony Yeo.
Yeah, that's right. And he does. I liked his little. I mean, it's outplayed because you do it and see it in various things. But I don't know. Every time he did his "Oh my God" thing, I was like, I don't know. That's kind of funny. But it's basically the same thing as the "Oh cat" from Puss in Boots.
Yeah.
It's and they do it 3 times just like that.
Oh wow.
But honestly, I say all this, and another thing, speaking of, is I don't know what's up with kids movies nowadays, but there's a reference to The Shining in this, and you would think there's a reference to The Shining in Angry Birds? Whoa! But then you think, wait a minute, there was also a Shining reference in Goosebumps and SpongeBob. In SpongeBob, it's the exact same reference in the SpongeBob one too. What's up with kids' movies in The Shining right now? Because this is all in the span of 1 year. 3 kids' movies have referenced The Shining.
You gotta throw that one reference in that it's gonna make the 5% of the theater that actually get it be like, oh, that's great.
It's not even clever, it's just like, yeah, that's in there.
Yeah.
In SpongeBob it is because of the twin popsicles.
Yeah, that was great.
But it's and it's really clever in Goosebumps too.
Oh yeah.
But here it's just kind of...
It's kind of thrown out there.
While they were in production, somebody saw the SpongeBob movie and they're like, hey, we can make that joke. It won't have any context, but we can make it. Okay, and I say that about the puns and The Shining and all that. But for the type of movie that it is, it actually doesn't feel all that half-assed.
No.
Like, it actually feels like they kind of tried to do something with it. Like, they didn't... There's really no way you can just kind of take this idea and just say, we're just going to put the game to screen. They realized you're actually going to have to try to put something in it. And I'm assuming the climax is what the game is.
That makes sense.
And because there's, like, green pigs, one of Bill Hader's their leader.
Yeah.
There's an eagle voiced by Peter Dinklage. That's basically 2 things came to mind. He's like Jeff Bridges in Surf's Up,
Yeah.
and he's like Johnny Depp in that episode of SpongeBob with I think Jack Kuna Laguna was his name. He was like an expert surfer, and his board was like 80 feet long.
That's awesome.
Because everything's circling again. We brought Johnny Depp back already. His performance as Whitey Bulger was probably his best performance since Jack Laguna.
I like Gila Point.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Yeah. So anyway, I was gonna make some more points here and then I just lost. Like, one thing that came to mind was Freebirds. Remember the movies?
Oh God, yeah.
The movie about the turkeys?
Uh-huh.
Where it's like, when you're watching it, it's like, hey, this is kind of funny, but then, like, as soon as the movie ended, it's like, no, like, I think when we went through and I had you put star mounts on every review I've done, if you watch my review for Freebirds, we had just seen it, and I think I said a bunch of stuff like, yeah, it's kind of funny, it's kind of amusing, but I had you put 1.5 as the star mount.
Yeah, right.
Because I was like, as soon as that movie ends, you're like, wow, that was a piece of shit.
Yeah. Can you explain to me?
But this one was amusing like that, but I didn't come out hate. Like, it was almost kind of like,
It came and went.
I'm glad that it actually, you may not believe me when I say it, but it actually felt like they tried a little bit.
They did.
It's... you were about to say something?
Yeah, what was with the Blake Shelton country number in the middle of the shit?
And
at the end, too?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody, but I fucking hate that guy. He just, even if I just see him in interviews, he really rubs me the wrong way. Like, I feel like he beats up gay people for fun.
I mean, I get...
I just get that vibe from him. I don't know. There's just something I don't like about him.
He just does have that. He has that punchable face. No, it's just one of those things. It's like it felt out of place. It's like, why are the pigs like dancing to country music? It makes no sense at all in the context.
But there's still. It's just really fucking silly, which is fine.
It's a goofy movie.
Yeah. It's fine. Josh Gad's bird is kind of funny. I like the bit with the sign. It reminded me of the clown in Happy Gilmore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but by the
Keegan-Michael Key.
Yeah, as the judge, but
the foghorn leghorn like judge that basically has 2 levels to him because he's got his on someone's shoulders. He's so small.
So, could I get 2 tickets, please? Keep that on the down low. Yeah, but I mean, it's very like there's a lot of filler in there, and the jokes are obvious, and the climax is so redundant.
Mm.
Like the climax is just really like, wow, this is. I mean, I get this is the whole thing you've been building up to. This is like the whole thing everybody apparently knows. I'm still assuming.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of when I lost me. Like I was gonna basically, like the redundancy of the climax is basically the difference between 2.5 and 2 stars. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, it's not gonna kill you or anything if you happen to come across it. Like, even if you were going to see it, like, maybe out of curiosity or something, if you don't have to pay for it. Yeah. It's... I mean, like I said, I guess I technically don't recommend it, but, it's a lot better than you probably think it would be.
It's very mild dislike.
Okay. And our last movie is All the Way. The HBO movie that is an adaptation of the play where Bryan Cranston played Lyndon Johnson. And so I was very curious about this. I really loved, I mean, as much as I love Cranston and the idea that this is a role he could just really just... I mean, like, when that play was going, like, all you heard about was, holy shit, Bryan Cranston in that play is just fucking...
I've even heard stuff about this.
So apart from that, I was also very curious about the angle of Anthony Mackie playing Martin Luther King.
Right.
And the fact that we were basically going to get a better version of Selma than Selma. And I heard a lot of people were disappointed about it being an HBO movie because
it could have done something.
He could have been on that awards train again already. I mean, he will be when Globe and SAG come around, and the Emmys obviously, but. So yes, we have a very powerful opening because obviously the opening is Kennedy's assassination and how he has to kind of make that transition regardless in amidst all the bad that's coming. But the thing about it, the tricky thing that Cranston has to do here is there's the whole question of how a certain person is betrayed in their own biopic. And the thing is that you heard a lot of unfavorable things about him. And you think, how is this going to portray him? Are they going to make him out to be a hero when he did some very questionable things and said some questionable things? Or is it going to be... Are we going to get a real down and dirty portrayal here? Well, when they're on the plane, and Jackie Kennedy's at the back, still covered in blood, and they've just come from the whole ceremony thing, they're looking at her, and she's like, oh, poor Jackie, everything she's been through, and oh my gosh, she's still got the blood on her, and just this poor person, and then he's just kind of sitting there, and then he's like, I really didn't like the way she was looking at me when I got sworn in. That was it's like her husband's head just exploded onto her, and you're worried about the way she looked at you. And it was like, okay, I think we're gonna get a pretty down and dirty portrayal here of this guy. But he's very complex. Like, it's not just, oh, he's the greatest guy ever, but it's also not, oh, he was a big piece of shit. We get both sides of it, and we find an exact middle ground here to show us an actual human being Believe it or not. Yeah, biopics don't show that very often, but this dude was actually a human being. Said some very, very questionable choices and things here, but we'll get to that. He's very profane. He, in his second scene, he fires his secretary just for basically being useless, and as she's walking away, he's staring at her ass and saying, "Why don't you next one you bring in have more meat on her ass?" And it's like, holy shit. Like, I have no idea if this, like, and this is the start of the movie, too. The movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes. So we're going to spend a lot of time with this character. And it's like, at that point, you're not quite sure. Like I said, maybe they were going to show us nothing but the bad and, you know, hardly any of the good. But there's a nice kind of even flow here. Like I said, it's actually a biopic where we see the complexity of them. They're not just inherently good or inherently bad. And while we're here real quick, I would like to talk about the makeup. Because in movies, especially TV movies, makeup will probably be a huge distraction in a lot of cases. And it's typically a bit over the top, and they're doing too much to kind of make the makeup do the work and not the actor. Cranston knows how to roll with it, and the makeup artists here really knew what they were doing, because this is one of those cases where the makeup is, I wouldn't say subtle, because you can clear, it's obviously Bryan Cranston in makeup, but it's definitely where if you're not like really, really looking, or if you're not really, really thinking about it, it makes Cranston disappear. Like, it really does. And the fact that this is all, like, his performance is really what comes to this. The makeup actually does its job as just being an enhancement of it. And even for a TV movie, that's an especially big deal. And yeah, and it's all, some people are giving it shit because Cranston's an actor that very much plays to the back of the room. Especially since this was a role that he just did on stage. It's gonna be a big performance. Given the guy, too. Like, I was seeing a conversation recently where somebody was saying Cranston was too over the top, and somebody's response was, "Did you ever see footage of LBJ?" And it's big. The only time I was ever really thrown off was when he really, really yells. When he's doing it and he's into it, and you're like, oh, I really, really see this character. Cranston's not even there. But when Cranston has a very, very distinct yell. Like, when his voice comes out when he's yelling, it's like, that's not a president at all. That's definitely Walter White. But it's only when he gets really loud. It's like, that is definitely Walt's yell. No, for the most part, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, the dude really, and Cranston's a pretty distinguishable dude, too. Like, he's got a character actor's face, but his voice is really distinguishable. But he just really, yeah, I'm not even exaggerating when I say it's like he disappears once you really get into the movie. It might throw you off at first because you're watching it and you're like, wow, that's Bryan Cranston, and man, he's really, really acting it up. But then, like, maybe half an hour in, when you still got an hour 45 to go, there's just not a lot of Cranston left. It is all the character. And it's a really, really great performance. I'm talking about the rest of the cast, because there's quite a few familiar faces. It's kind of the same thing, where you're kind of thrown off at first, and they don't quite fall in line as well as Cranston does. Though Cranston has a lot more screen time to work with. But there's, like, looking at Mackie, for example. I really love that casting. Like I said, that was one of the main driving points I really wanted to see this thing, was to see Mackie play this part. You know, it'd be nice to see somebody play Martin Luther King that doesn't have their head as firmly planted up their own ass as David Oyelowo does. But we won't go into that. So just look up a couple of interviews with him. It's fucking ridiculous. He is still being pissy about his Oscar snub. It's ridiculous. But, well, regardless of that, seeing Mackie play this part, at the start of it, it felt like a little much, because it was kind of like, he was to Oyelowo's credit. I did like Oyelowo's portrayal. and it was very, very downplayed. So it was a bit off-putting to me when I saw Mackie's first scene or two, and it kind of felt like, you know how when you hear audio from Martin Luther King's speeches, and it's that, I have a dream kind of thing with his voice. It kind of felt like Mackie was doing that, like, all the time. Like, even when he was speaking normally, like, into a phone. Where he kind of had that thing in his voice, where it was almost turning into a song. But the portrayal becomes much more natural as the movie goes. And it was just one of those, just every now and then that voice kind of felt like it was a little, you're not doing a speech scene, Mackie, you're just talking on the phone. I'm pretty sure he didn't sound like that all the time. And like I said, that took me back to David Oyelowo's performance, where it was like, it was a very downplayed version. So, yes. See, I'm not hating on Oyelowo, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Melissa Leo is here as Lady Bird Johnson. This is kind of the one performance where I'm like, I don't know, but she looks so much like her. It is identical. It's creepy how much Melissa Leo looks like her. And the performance is nice because it's clear she's that kind of counterpoint to him, where like when he's all she's calm and kind of almost but that's the point though, is I don't know how exactly she's supposed to be portrayed, because I don't really know anything much about her except what she looks like, and that she was his wife. But her portrayal is very, very kind of like the annoyingly perfect wife. Like, instead of being the wife of a president, she should be the wife of like on a 50s sitcom. And it feels almost like like it doesn't, like, the way she's written doesn't really give enough to really, really flesh out a character apart from doing that. She's just kind of the opposite of what he is, and that's what makes her who she is. But it felt like a very, like, outside looking in portrayal of her. We didn't really get much from what Leo was given to work with. As far as the other three main names, there's more people. But the three other big characters in this movie are Stephen Root, Frank Langella, and Bradley Whitford. Stephen Root is J. Edgar Hoover. And that was... It was... For all three of these, really, though, it was... all three of them are kind of so distinct in their own way that it was kind of hard to see them as other characters. Like, when you see Stephen Root, he's behind the desk and he's got the hair, and it's like he looks like J. Edgar Hoover, but then every single time he talks, that is totally Stephen Root. And it's very, and that's that way through the whole movie. Like, he never seemed to really fall into J. Edgar Hoover. It was very much, yeah, that's Stephen Root with his hair slicked back. It certainly is. Frank Langella's good. And he has I'm pretty sure he has makeup. That's probably not all that necessary. He's got like a nose. And it's just kind of like, that's Frank Langella with a nose. It definitely sounds... Frank Langella is one of those voices you can't change. If Frank Langella's talking, no matter what he's doing, you know it's Frank Langella. That is a voice you cannot hide. But he's still good in that that kind of mentor role.
Right.
And then you have Bradley Whitford, who gets... By the end of the movie, he's very good. Like, don't get the wrong idea when I say this. It took me a long time, though, to get used to his performance. Because for a long time, it was... the first time I saw him, I didn't recognize him. But they only showed him for like a second. And then they come back to him and he started talking, and I was like, oh, that's Bradley Whitford. And oh, that's Bradley Whitford in weird prosthetics. Oh, that's Bradley Whitford in weird prosthetics doing a weird voice. This is all very distracting because that is clearly Bradley Whitford in there. But he actually becomes one of the stronger characters in the movie because he's the guy that's basically always sticks around and puts up with Johnson's shit, and is always the guy that's was always by his side no matter how badly it got. And he's really good there. He really sells that. Ray Wise is like one of those guys where it's all he really did was he's wearing glasses and his hair is like kind of frizzy. But that's all that's really different. But for some reason, it was like halfway through the movie before I recognized him. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. Especially since I just saw you in that movie. that movie where you were trying to say God's dead, even only by telling the truth. But no, you want God. Well, no, we don't go into that.
Please no.
Another interesting thing they do here is George Wallace is a crucial character in this movie. But the very interesting thing they do here is George Wallace is pretty much almost a full-on character in this movie. But he's not played by anybody. It's all TV footage. I find that very interesting. Like, just archive footage of him giving speeches. But he's referenced so much, and we see those speeches. It's like he's a full-on character in the movie.
That's kind of cool.
I thought that was really clever. Like, not like in the really clever thing that Emilio Estevez did with Bobby, where it's like they had the footage and it was like he was there, but they were also only using footage. That was Bobby's so underrated. It's a really good movie. But no, it's just them talking about him and just his archive footage of his speeches of them watching them on TV. But it's like he's so present with just that. It's like he's a full-on character, which I really liked. And they do a lot of there's a lot going on here. Obviously, they try to cover like the whole period of time of that first for all the way up to his re-election. And they cover a lot of territory. And I think I heard some criticisms that they think the movie's overcrowded. I thought it did surprisingly well of kind of jumping around, but kind of keeping a good flow going. Like there's one particular thing with the three guys that were stopped by the cops and then disappeared. Is like a thing in history you don't really hear about. And I thought that was a really good to kind of put as much focus on that story as they do in the movie. And there's also all the other characters. The character of Walter is really good too, where he's it's the guy that he basically. There's a really nice scene where he's basically saying, I wish I had a son. I love my two daughters, but I really wish I had a son. And you're basically the closest thing I have to a son. It's like a really touching moment. But then that leads to a scene where it's kind of like, okay, you can probably settle down a little bit. This is a little much. There's a scene when it is shown that Walter was arrested because he was caught doing things of the gay persuasion in public bathrooms, and Johnson's trying to kind of go through this and think about it. He's talking to who else but J. Edgar Hoover about this. And it's this scene, and really, really plays it up too. It felt so out of place in this movie, but because it was such a serious moment. But it was, I don't know if it's supposed to be comedic or suspenseful or what, but it just felt very off. But it's this thing where it's, he's talking to J. Edgar Hoover about it, and he's like, how do you know? Like, how do you know someone's gay? And then you can see Hoover, like, freaking out internally, and he's like, I guess you just see signs, or something. And then there's a fake out where Johnson says, well, I guess you would know. You know, because of your line of work.
That's
like,
great.
I was like, okay, it's a little bit of a ridiculous scene. Like, we get it. But, it's whatever you want to do. And another thing that's really great is there's also a really good moment where, like I said, they don't shy away from the shitty things he did, too. Like, there's a moment when there's a woman talking about abuse that she faced, and how she was, like, like, people were, like, another black guy was made to whip her and stuff like that, and just a whole bunch of, prejudice and violence that she had seen. And she's given this whole speech on live TV. And Johnson basically has a lapse in judgment and says, we need to not put this out there, for my sake. We need to cover this up. So he basically says, tell them there's a special announcement, just tell them anything. So obviously when a president has the announcement, that cuts off everything. And so he basically just goes out there with no plan and just wings it just to cover up what that woman was saying. And that's where we go back and forth. Like there are moments where we understand him and we really get the position that he's in and just where the character comes from. But then there's also those things he does that are quite reprehensible. but just showing the complexity of the character and that we can see it from both sides is really well played. Not just on Cranston's part, but the writers too. And the thing I really love about it too is when you look at a movie like this, typically it would just come off as existing for nothing more than a performance piece. Like one of those movies where you just watch it and you're like, this was a movie strictly made so that actors could go fucking crazy and just really, really fucking act. But they're really good at telling the story too. I was really surprised by that, especially it being a play. And about it being a play too, it's very interesting that I was when I heard about the play, I was thinking something on the lines of Give 'Em Hell Harry is what it would be like, where it's like practically a one-man show. But with everything going on here, this for starters, this is definitely a movie they could have played in theaters. The director is Jay Roach, who did the Austin Powers movies and Meet the Parents. But he's been doing these political HBO movies forever. He did I think he did Game Change and Recount and all of those. But he and Cranston just did Trumbo together. So I feel like they really could have put this in theaters if they wanted to. It definitely works. Obviously, because HBO has been doing this political movies for so long, yeah, it does feel like, an HBO TV movie. But I'd also totally buy it if it was in theaters too. I can see it as both of them. But alas, we just got an HBO thing, which is fine. And yeah, they may try to cover a bit too much territory, but I feel like they balanced it fine. So yeah, that turned out really well. I got more than I thought I was going to get for sure. I was just expecting, Cranston just really go crazy, and then Mackie to kind of do his thing, and then that's pretty much what the movie is. But there's a lot going on in it, and I feel like they covered a lot of it really well. There's also kind of when they go into his home life and the stuff that he did, like his car, boat, and the dog and all that. It also kind of felt like those portions are what Hyde Park on Hudson was trying to be. Of course, that movie's a fucking disaster. We all know that. But if Hyde Park on Hudson had been good, it would have looked something like this. Those portions of the movie, anyway. So, yeah, that was nice.
Alright, that's a good way to end the video, especially because of all the other stuff on it. Real quick before we end, star amounts, X-Men Apocalypse,
2.
Alice Through the Looking Glass,
1.5. Helena Bonham Carter, thank you for that half.
the Angry Birds movie.
I could be generous and go 2.5, but we'll just it's 2.
And all the way.
3.
Alright. All over the place this week. The only thing we didn't have was a perfect score. Wasn't gonna happen with any of these movies. We'll say right now that next week we've got a long week on our hands. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Next movie's coming out. We've got Me Before You and Andy Samberg's new Pop Star Never Stop Popping. I feel bad being...
That's another movie that feels like it's really, really late on its popularity.
I feel bad. It has nothing to do with anything. We just don't like... The double feature's going to be terrible.
Triple?
No, the double feature, I'm okay with the Turtles movie, obviously. But I like the first one.
Well, it's having to do them all at once.
Yeah, it's going to be a long night, per se, for sure. A lot of great stuff coming this weekend. Sip and Snack tomorrow, Sunday, Versus will bring you chocolate as your cryptic comment. Gaming with Ash returns on Monday, Raw Podcast, 11:30 Monday night, Wednesday Wrestling Podcast, 9:30 on Wednesday night. Sip and Snack Random Flavors on Thursday, and Back to AJ's Movie Reviews on Friday, Sip and Snack on Saturday, and Sunday, your cryptic comment is Hostage. So stay tuned for that. Halloween Horror Nights news coming when we get it. And check out our Zazzle store, Podcast Network. You want any merchandise? Facebook fan page, Podcast Network, and at Podcast Network on Twitter. So that being said, I want to thank you guys and girls out there for watching. AJ, any parting words?